Alex Neve is an international human rights lawyer who served as Secretary General of Amnesty International Canada's English branch for nearly 21 years. Most recently, Mr. Neve serves as one of 4 commissioners on the Ottawa People's Commission on the Convoy occupation. So, Alex, nice to see you face to face finally.
Yeah, nice to be here.
Listen, so obviously the commission which you are working with has a different mandate than that of Justice Rouleau's. But given the weight of this review, I'm wondering what the reaction is amongst you and your colleagues.
Well, we certainly welcome it. As you can well imagine, we followed it quite closely, as did many Canadians during the course of the fall. And while I won't pretend to have yet exhaustively digested the entirety of the report, I've certainly had an opportunity to see the highlights, and I'm struck by the fact that while we have very different mandates, and obviously he had a lot more legal power, we're a popularly convened people's process, that there's a lot that's in common. Some of the key findings that we've been making resonate with what we've been hearing in his report as well.
Well, to the fact that it is different than what your commission's trying to achieve. Your commission's trying to achieve healing and justice. Does this report help your mandate in any way?
I think it does, because part of both the healing and justice process is some real acknowledgement about what was the experience at community level. That's our focus in our commission, is what was the impact of the convoy on the community, the 23,000 people who live in downtown Ottawa. And I think we've seen a lot of that in the report. Certainly, like us, he has made it very clear that this was not the peaceful love fest celebratory gathering that convoy organizers and participants like to insist it was. We talk about it being a convoy that was marked by violence and human rights abuses. He talks about it being unsafe and lawless and chaotic. I think it's very important for people at community level to hear that. It's a validation, especially after many weeks during the convoy, when their experience was being dismissed, not only by the convoy organizers, but even sometimes by police themselves, who were often labeling this as a largely peaceful, mainly peaceful process, which was not their experience at all. So I think it's important that people hear that.
I'm wondering what you think of the Prime Minister's role in all this, and the government's role as well, because while the bar may have been met, Justice Rouleau also says that governments should have done a better job of distinguishing protesters who are out there because they were frustrated and exercising their democratic right, and those that were essentially troublemakers. What do you say to that?
I think what our take, as we've been listening to the more than 200 people who have been making submissions and testifying in our process, is there was a real human rights failure that lies behind all of this. That from the outset, federal, provincial, municipal governments didn't have a strong human rights framework in place that was going to guide how they responded to what was happening. That would, for instance, have given greater clarity as to how you distinguish between the legitimate, lawful protest that was happening, which always should be upheld, and everything else that went beyond protest, that wasn't peaceful, and that was leading to human rights abuses. And there was responsibility at all 3 levels of government to be responsive to that, to be proactive, to have that kind of human rights approach in place long before the convoy shows up, so that people aren't abandoned in the way they were. And that's where the failure lies. And then it gets compounded by the fact, and Justice Rouleau makes this point repeatedly in the report, by the fact that federalism didn't work here, that the different orders of government were completely disconnected from each other. The provincial government wasn't even showing up. And at a time when we needed those 3 orders of government to be on the same page, pointed in the same direction, working in lockstep with each other to protect and uphold human rights. Yes, the right to protest, but also the fundamental rights of people living in downtown Ottawa. We saw nothing close to that.
Again, you are part of a commission that is very separate from the Rouleau Commission, but I am interested in this because now we have this final report, and it has me wondering, where does the healing move in? Because while there are recommendations being made by Justice Rouleau, there are still many hurt feelings, many divisions amongst Canadians as to how they might view this, and however many might view it one way, there's still a significant minority that might view it another way. How is there healing this? What needs to be done to move forward?
This is something we're grappling with in the People's Commission as well, and because it's so vital. And there was, it's not that things just went terribly wrong during those 3.5 weeks in February of 2022. There, of course, was a build-up in the 2 years before that as we were having all sorts of social breakdowns and divisions and polarization in society during those 2 very difficult first years of the COVID pandemic. And it's really struck us that one of the things that was missing was, whether it's something like our exercise of the People's Commission or other processes, but venues that offer space for dialogue, that offer space without shouting at each other at school board meetings, etc., but offer a space to have meaningful conversations, to share experiences, to hear and learn from each other. We've seen that be very valuable in the People's Commission process. We heard from convoy supporters. We weren't only hearing from people who were opposed to the convoy. And I think going forward, those kinds of processes need to become more regular. I don't know if we had things like that on offer during those 2 years, whether that would have deflated some of the tensions, whether it would have avoided some of the polarization. I might be a little bit naive in imagining that, but I don't think it would have hurt. And we need to be looking for that. How do we open up more meaningful space for difficult discussions about important issues?
Alex Sneeve, thank you for that.
Thank you.